From North Korea, held prisoner for more than a year, Otto Warmbier has now died. Returned to the U.S. with extensive brain damage. His parents now reacting just moments ago. The new horror in Paris, the armed driver who filled his car with gas canisters and plowed into police on the Champs-Elysees. We're on the scene tonight. And hours earlier, a truck right into a crowd in London. The moment the suspect is dragged out. Severe storms as we come on the air tonight, moving up the East Coast from D.C. to Philly to New York, right during rush hour, and major delays at airports tonight. The deadly collision at sea, what we've learned tonight after 7 U.S. sailors were lost. How did that container vessel plow right into a U.S. destroyer? And there is news coming in tonight about Carrie Fisher. What was found in her system?
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. And we begin with late developments today, the worsening horror for a mother and father from Ohio. Their son, who was just returned from North Korea with severe brain damage, has now died. This was the moment Otto Warmbier was returned, unable to talk or recognize anyone after more than a year in captivity. His parents reacting just a short time ago, pointing to the, quote, awful, torturous mistreatment at the hands of the North Koreans that did this. ABC's Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz leading us off tonight.
He arrived in the U.S. less than a week ago, carried off a plane suffering from extensive brain damage, more than a year since the world heard his plea for mercy.
Please save my life. Please think of my family.
In a statement today, his parents say when Otto was carried off that airplane, he looked very uncomfortable, almost anguished. But within a day, the countenance of his face changed. He was at peace. He was home, and we believe he could sense that. But he could not walk, talk, or respond to verbal commands. And today, he passed away, surrounded by his family. Since the moment their son was sentenced to hard labor for stealing a propaganda poster, the Warmbiers were fighting until he was released.
We're thrilled that our son is on American soil, and I'm able to talk to you on Otto's behalf, and I'm able to wear the jacket that he wore when he gave his confession.
The family clearly blames North Korea for Otto's death, saying today the awful, torturous mistreatment our son received at the hands of the North Koreans ensured that no other outcome was possible.
And Martha Raddatz joins us live tonight. And Martha, we still don't know what caused that brain damage. And just moments ago, President Trump now responding to news of his death.
David, he made some brief comments before the beginning of a meeting saying that a lot of bad things happened to Otto while in North Korea, but at least they were able to get him home to be with his parents. The White House also said it deepens the administration's determination to prevent such tragedies, but there was no indication that there will be any response beyond that statement, David, to Otto's death.
Martha Raddatz leading us off tonight. Martha, thank you. We are also on the scene tonight of another terror attack, this time a man filling his car with explosives and guns. He reportedly then ignited his car while still inside and drove right into a police van on the famous Champs-Elysees in Paris. The attempt backfired as they dragged him from the car, and you're about to see it. ABC's James Longman is in Paris.
The burning remains of Paris's latest terror attack on the famed Champs-Elysees. At 3:40 p.m. local, the suspect sets his car on fire, hoping to cause an explosion, according to French media. But his attempt fails as he rams his car packed with explosives into a police van. Only his vehicle is engulfed in flames. The driver, seen here, dragged away in clouds of smoke by officers, reportedly gripping onto a handgun which he was too badly injured to use.
I thought to myself, guys, maybe it's an attack, this teenager says. Badly burned, the alleged attacker dies.
Dozens of soldiers and armed police descend. The bomb squad is called in, an officer carefully cutting away the man's clothes, checking for a suicide vest. Inside that car, investigators reportedly finding 2 gas canisters, 2 handguns, and a Kalashnikov rifle. The attacker was known to authorities, identified as a 31-year-old man with links to extremism. Police again were the targets, but unlike that April shootout on the Champs-Elysees that left an officer dead, no police or bystanders were hurt, and not a single shot fired.
And James Longman joined us live tonight from the Champs-Elysees. And as you reported, James, the second time in a matter of months along that famous street. We know this 31-year-old was known to police. He had links to extremism, but do we know if he was acting alone, I should say?
Well, David, it certainly seems that way. I mean, there's been no claim of responsibility, and it doesn't look like a particularly well thought through attack. But remember, this is the 6th attack since 2015 that has targeted law enforcement specifically around Paris. David?
James Longman in Paris for us tonight. James, thank you. And the attack came just a short time after another attack, and this one was deadly in London. The attacker plowing his truck into a crowd outside a mosque. And tonight the video shows the anger of the witnesses trying to get to that suspect before police could. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Terry Moran is in London.
Terror strikes in North London. Just after midnight, this white rented van veers off a road in Finsbury Park, slams into a crowd of pedestrians, Muslim worshippers who had just finished late-night prayers.
Is he breathing? Is he breathing?
Bodies strewn across the area, a calculated assault.
He drove on the pavement, coming straight towards all the Muslims.
The van stops at a dead end and an angry crowd pulls the driver out. They wrestle him to the ground as the suspect is heard spewing hatred.
And then the guy got out of the van saying, "Where's all Muslims? I want to kill all Muslims."
Then, with the crowd on the edge of violence,
no one touched him, no one.
The local imam intervenes.
By God's grace, we managed to surround him and to protect him from any harm.
Police arrive and take him away. He's identified as Darren Osborne, a 47-year-old father of 4 living in Wales. At least 11 injured in the attack, 1 dead on the scene. Tonight, that rented van towed away by police.
And Terry Moran with us live tonight from the scene. And we heard you report the suspect is a father of 4 from Wales. He traveled quite a distance to pull off this attack.
He did, David, and tonight his family has issued a statement saying they're massively in shock about what he allegedly did. But his neighbors in Wales say that he had grown increasingly agitated since that London Bridge terror attack 2 weeks ago. David?
Terry Moran from London tonight. Terry, thank you. And next tonight, the growing mystery after 7 U.S. sailors lost their lives. The question tonight, how did a massive container ship plow into U.S. destroyer with sophisticated radar and warning systems? And why were those U.S. sailors put in such danger? Here's ABC's Matt Gutman with what we've learned tonight.
Tonight, the Navy investigating how a U.S. destroyer with sophisticated radar and a crew trained to detect threats 24/7 could be so blindsided. ABC News has learned the ACX Crystal slammed into the Fitzgerald's midsection at 1:32 a.m. Saturday, nearly an hour before the Navy says the collision occurred. Below the waterline, the container ship's bulbous bow worked like a battering ram, T-boning 2 berthing compartments where more than 100 sailors slept. The Fitzgerald was taking on water. The crew of about 300 knew sailors were missing, but frantically worked to keep it afloat.
They had to fight the ship to keep it above the surface, so it was traumatic.
Helicopters medevac the ship's captain, who was sleeping and knocked unconscious. 7 sailors would die, all of them found in the ship's sleeping quarters. They ranged in age from 19 to 37, with hometowns from Connecticut to California. Daryl Martin lost his son, Xavier.
It's very hard. It's my only child. It's all I have.
Is there a chance that the captain or the mates or other people in the ship could lose their jobs?
Certainly. Absolutely. There's always that chance.
Let's get to Matt Gutman with us live tonight. And Matt, we're learning there was a delay in reporting this collision.
That's right, David. It's certainly something that will be investigated. It seemed like a hit and run on the high seas, that cargo ship plowing through the Fitzgerald and continuing on its previous course for 30 minutes before turning around. It only alerted authorities about the collision 50 minutes after it happened.
Matt Gutman with us again tonight on this. Matt, thank you. We turn next here to President Trump, whose personal attorney spent much of the weekend saying the president is not under investigation for obstruction of justice, despite the president's tweet saying it repeatedly on several programs before the attorney then appeared to contradict himself. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl.
The president today welcomed to the White House some of the world's leading tech CEOs.
It's great to have you at the White House.
But looming over it all, the Russia investigation and the president's own tweets, especially this missive on Friday. I am being investigated for firing the FBI director, calling it a witch hunt. But on Sunday, the president's own lawyer, Jay Sekulow, contradicted him.
The president has not been and is not under investigation.
Sekulow insists the president was only talking about an article in the Washington Post. But on one show, the lawyer actually seemed to contradict himself.
So he's being investigated for taking the action that the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General recommended him to take.
You've now said that he is being investigated after saying that you didn't.
No.
You just said,
no, he's
sir,
not being
that
investigated.
you just said that he's being investigated.
No, Chris, I said that anything. Let me be crystal clear so you completely understand. We have not received nor are we aware of any investigation of the President of the United States.
Whatever the status of the investigation, senior officials are preparing. Jared Kushner, the president's powerful son-in-law, is now looking to add a criminal defense attorney to his legal team. His own business dealings now reportedly under the microscope. But today, Kushner, for the first time, was speaking before the cameras at the White House.
We are here to improve the day-to-day lives of the average citizen. That's a core promise, and we are keeping it.
His portfolio is big as ever, today leading the effort with the tech CEOs, and later this week traveling to Israel to work on Middle East peace.
So let's get to John Carl live at the White House on a Monday night. And John, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was pressed again today on whether or not the president has secretly recorded conversations there at the White House, in particular with James Comey. No cameras or audio from that briefing allowed today. Obviously, you were there. So what did Spicer say?
Well, at one point, Spicer said that the president would probably reveal by the end of the week whether those recordings exist. At another point, he said possibly by the end of the week. But the one thing that you will not see or hear are recordings of Sean Spicer today. David, and more of these briefings, the White House is simply not allowing news organizations to take video of Spicer or to broadcast his words.
That will be debated for some time to come, John Carl. Our thanks to you. And there are tensions with Russia mounting tonight after a U.S. fighter jet shot down a Syrian warplane. Russia now saying American and coalition planes will now be tracked as targets over parts of Syria. The U.S. says it downed that Syrian jet after it dropped bombs near a U.S.-backed group fighting ISIS on the ground and after giving them warning. It was the first U.S. air-to-air shoot-down of a manned aircraft in nearly 2 decades. Back here at home and to the severe storms moving up the East Coast at this hour, hitting right at rush hour. Major travel delays at this hour. 64 million Americans from North Carolina right up through Philly, New York, into Maine. The storm clouds moving in over Manhattan late this afternoon. Philadelphia, Hartford as well. Driving wind and rains near Allentown, Pennsylvania. And massive trees down, completely covering this home in Silver Spring, Maryland. Let's get to meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all for us tonight. Hey, Rob.
Hey, David, just explosive storms across the Northeast, and it's still raining heavily, so flood warning is still in effect. Look at this line. It should diminish over the next couple of hours, but we still have that to get through. Drier air mass coming in. Hot and dry across the southwest. Tomorrow's going to be day 4 for this incredible heat wave. Maybe all-time records in Vegas and Phoenix, 119, my goodness. And the tropics are active. Tropical storm Brett there near Venezuela, but of greater importance is what's in the Gulf of Mexico. Potential tropical storm there expected to make landfall in Louisiana on Wednesday. Likely not a hurricane, but certainly for folks in the storm zone, David, they need to take this one seriously.
All right, a lot to track tonight. Rob Marciano, our thanks to you. Next, it is down to the wire in that closely watched special election in Georgia tonight. Voters go to the polls tomorrow in the most expensive congressional race in history. The Republican candidate looking to hang on in a district where President Trump barely beat Hillary Clinton. Democrats hoping their candidate has a chance. ABC's Steve Osunsami is there.
They're giving it one last push tonight.
Good to see you.
And new figures show that the pile of cash these two candidates have spent fighting each other is now larger than $50 million, the costliest congressional race ever.
The same unhinged leftists cheering last week's shooting are all backing Jon Ossoff.
The gloves have been off for a while, but this new ad from a fringe group tying Democrat Jon Ossoff to last week's shooting of Republican lawmakers went low.
My position is that ad should come down and should call for it to come down.
What do you think about this ad? The ad that aired over the weekend, sort of tying this to the shooting?
Absolutely disgusting and beyond inappropriate.
The president this evening is weighing in, pointing out that Ossoff lives outside the 6th and can't even vote in the district. Republican Karen Handel says her opponent is only doing well because of all the money coming from out of state.
You know, a squirrel is going to get a pretty decent percentage of the vote if he has $30 million behind him.
Polls show this race is dead even, so turnout will be key. And this rain, which continues through tomorrow, could make a difference in who shows up to vote. David?
Steve Osunsami tracking that race for us in a very rainy Georgia, as he points out. There is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Monday. The investigations tonight into 2 separate electrocutions, 2 separate lakes, in fact. The warning for families tonight. Also, the case making national headlines, the young Muslim girl killed on the side of the road. The suspect in custody tonight. Was it a hate crime? What authorities are now saying. There is news tonight about the death of Carrie Fisher, the autopsy revealing what was found in her system. And Made in America is back tonight, something that will not only make you happy, but your pet too. The ingredients inside what's called a bark box that could be landing at your doorstep when we come back.
People would ask me in different countries that we traveled, what is your nationality? And I would always answer Hispanic. So when I got my Ancestry DNA results, it was a shocker. I'm everything. I'm from all nations. I would look at forms.